Hi, and welcome to Drawing with Steffi. Today we're going to draw a unicorn. Well, a new unicorn anyway. As always, if you'd like to see more of my art, or you would like to be notified of when new videos are available, please follow my Tumblr with Lady Cybercat. I'm also on Twitter at CyberCatArt, and most of my art and tutorials end up on DeviantArt, where you can find me at lady-cybercat.deviantart.com. I'm most active there. You can see all sorts of nifty things. So let's get this started. Today I did it a little bit differently. I drew the unicorn first. And today, as you can see, is a little bit different than a lot of unicorns you see drawn today. This one is a little bit more goat or deer-like. Back in the day, when they first started drawing unicorns, they looked a little bit more like goats or deer than straight out horses. Their legs are a little bit thinner, their faces aren't quite as horse-like. They also have lion-like tails and lots of feathers, as they call them, on their legs, and they also have cloven hooves. Alright, so let's get started. I'm going to fade this out, and I'm going to show you how I would build up the, I guess you could call it a skeleton. When I'm drawing, I like to start with shapes. So what I'm going to do here is, when I drew this before, I started with basically a triangle. And most things can be drawn from shapes. If you find it difficult to build up the shape, you can just break it up into more shapes, and sometimes that makes it easier. I also use line work to kind of help me decide how I want something to be drawn. Kind of like with the tail here. I just came around here and made a kind of an S curve. And generally when I'm drawing, I kind of make lines for where the body is going to be, kind of stretched out to. So I have an arm, or a leg, I guess I should call it, going out here and here. And of course, you have to know a little bit about animal anatomy. I know that they have kind of like an ankle here, and there's a little bit of an ankle there too. There's a little bit of bending right at the end of their leg there. And the same with their back feet. And then I draw a circle back here for its hips, and a really big circle up here for its chest. And I just connect two legs here, and I know that's a bit of a curve there for the stomach. And again, I just, build it up with more shapes. Over the years, I've kind of gotten used to which way things go, so sometimes I kind of cheat and I don't make, normal shapes and squares. I kind of block out the areas that I know and are familiar with. But when you're first starting out, it's okay just to make straight out shapes. Use a lot of circles. A lot of triangles too. Hooves make good triangles. There we go. And then, of course, big old triangle for the horn. I don't usually draw in construction shapes for the hair. I can usually freehand that pretty good afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fade this out a little bit. Because when I'm sketching on paper, I draw really lightly for my construction lines, and then I start drawing harder once I've figured out how the shapes all go. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here on the face. And again, there's more basic shapes I can add here to make this a little bit easier. The eye again, another triangle. Kind of the cheek here, it's kind of a semicircle. Mouth open, another triangle. And just a line here for the nose. Deer and horses have this kind of little divot right behind their eye. I'm not sure why, it's just part of the way their skull goes. And of course there's the ear. And this triangle is a little bit big for the whole neck. It kind of curves inward. But since I was trying to make it, geographic shapes, I I didn't quite go the way it was. So you kind of just whittle it down. So I know there's like another triangle shape right here for the throat. And I know it goes this way. If you're not real sure how things are supposed to look, you know, photos are great. I'll tell you a secret. I didn't draw this just for my head. I used a 3D program, and because I didn't want to use a photo. I didn't want everybody to go, oh, I know that picture. It's okay to use reference. I have a 3D horse, and I set it up rearing, and then I figured out which direction I wanted it to look, and then I used that for reference. Now, I didn't trace it, because, you know, then it would look a lot better. No, I'm kidding. It's okay to use reference. Just make sure it's reference you're allowed to use. Not every picture on the internet is free to use. You gotta make sure it's something you've either taken yourself, or, you know, maybe a friend or a relative has taken for you, or, you know, just somebody you can ask permission of, or use stock photos. If you have, you know, if you've bought a stock photo, you know, using calendars or just random images off the internet is not a good idea. Alrighty. You can always email the person who made the picture and you can say, hey, can I use this? And a lot of times they'll say okay. Alright, so I'm just again using more basic shapes to fill in the areas of how things should look. And I can bring this out a little bit here to represent that I'm going to have the feathers there. And I know I need a line here because that's where it sort of goes in. And again, if I was drawing this on paper, I'd be drawing really lightly still, because I'm still filling in the basic shape. I'm going to bend this in a little bit. Let's see here. And I know there's a muscle that comes down around in here. I'm not going to worry about the hair yet. And I know this goes inwards some. And this is another kind of triangle, is the mouth. And just stick the tongue in there. Gothic unicorns have beards. So I'm just going to draw that in real quick. There's also some interesting muscles right here. This is the shoulder, and it comes around here too. And then there's kind of like the elbow that comes around right here. And there's a little bit of skin that comes down this way. But the chest has this interesting musculature right here that can be a little tricky to draw when you're first starting out. I'm going to put a little circle there. Now, I don't want his legs getting too beefy, or hers. So that's something to keep in mind when you're drawing. Unicorns are very, or well, not all of them, but this one anyway, is very lightly boned. More like a deer than a horse. Alright, so that's the basic shape we've got worked out now. I'm going to zoom back in. So again, I'm going to make that lighter, because then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw on top of my, let me get rid of that back there. I'm going to draw on top of my construction lines. Now this is where you have to kind of know what you're doing, or at least just, again, draw lighter. So if you do mess up, here, let me use a different color. So if you do mess up, it's easy to erase. Or you can use a digital program like I am. This is Paint Tool Sai. It's very easy to use. And this is where you start going over lightly your construction lines and finalizing how you want the lines to be. And we're just going to make a little goat-like nose here. And it has a little bit of a split lip. And you just fill it out. Just put some teeth in there. Don't want to forget his tongue on the other side of his mouth, because his head is tilted just a tad. And slowly but surely, you start working in the softer organic shapes. Oh, they also have tassels on their ears, so I'm going to put some tassel here. Some more feathers. How about we do the eye? Let me zoom in some more so you can see what I'm doing a little bit better. Woo, very close. There we go. They have fairly round eyes. Now goats and horses actually have pupils that are kind of oval and they go this way, but I'm not going to draw that because that looks kind of creepy. So I'm just going to make a nice big round pupil here. I'm going to color that in fairly deep. And that's kind of a highlight there, so I'm going to make another little highlight right here. I'm going to erase that a little bit. Whoops! Too big. Let's try that again. There we go. I'm going to give it some eyelashes though. And there we go. Not too many because I don't want it to be too toony. There we go. And then we're going to pull out. And you can add in some more details. You know, there's some muscles that kind of come this way. A little bit around the nose. There's one right there. You kind of have to study a horse's musculature. They have a lot of kind of strange shapes in their face. And you can't really, I'm going to add a little bit of a suggestion of that other eye on the other side, the little eye ridge. And then we're going to draw the other side of the chest here. You can see a little bit of the shoulder. And I'm not going to draw a lot of hard lines for the inside musculature. I'm just going to draw some light suggestions. Because when you give too many hard lines for muscles, it starts looking unrealistic. And this one, I don't want it to be too toony. And this is where you get a chance to soften things up a little bit. I'm going to add in the fluff, or feathers as they say. Again, nice and thin. And I'm not going to overpronounce the ankles too much. And there's some more hair down on the hooves. And again, I'm going to make them cloven. It's not a unicorn if it doesn't have cloven hooves. Then it's just a horse with a horn. Alright, and then we just put some more thin lines here. And again, we're going to start adding in the feathers. I have no idea why they're called feathers. I guess it's just because they're so nice and fluffy and soft. A lot of the heavy draft horses have those. You could actually put some like around its ankle, or I'm sorry, its elbow, but this time we're just going to keep it simple and put in the stomach here. Draw in the back. And there's more fluff along the tail. Now if you didn't want to draw, you know, Gothic unicorn this way, and you just wanted to do a normal horse, of course you could totally use this tutorial for that. And just use it for the pose. By the way, if anybody's using my tutorials to draw stuff, I'd love to see it. You know, just leave a message on the YouTube comments page. We'd love to see what you've been doing. And we're just going to add in some long, luxurious hair there. And, you know, add a little bit more fluff along the tail here and there. Okay, and then add in the back leg here. Again, nice and thin, not too overly detailed. And add in the feathers. And of course, this is just one way to draw. A lot of people like to do the outline rather than work it from the inside out, but I just find that easier. And then add in the cloven hoof, and then the other leg, and of course lots of fluff. And a little bit of the ankle there, and more fluff. There's a lot of fluff with unicorns. And there's the hoof. You can color the inside of that in a little bit, make it a little bit more 3D. And I think I'm gonna, gotta do the mane now. Can't forget the mane. Oh, we almost forgot her beard, or his beard. Apparently the girls had beards too. There we go. I'm gonna turn this around a little bit. And I still kind of make shapes for when I'm doing the mane. I don't draw from the outlines. I kind of build it up. Let's give her a really nice long one. Not going to follow the design I had before, but that's okay. I don't have to. And I kind of just make swishies. Lots of kind of figure eight, or not figure eight, kind of S's. Of course, if this was a little bit more realistic, I'd make it less fluffy. And of course, there's mane up in front. And that goes in front of the horn. Now, horn placement. A lot of people like sticking it right up here, but really it should come like right above their brow, and it should. You gotta watch the angle, because it can look really funny if you stick it at the wrong angle. So definitely make sure that it's like right above their eyes and is not angling in the wrong direction. Because you want to imagine that they can lower their head and then charge forward and, you know, stab the bad things that are out there. Purify water and all that other good unicorn stuff. Alrighty, so now let's do the horn. I like to do mine in a spiral shell type technique. Some people just put lines. I like being a little bit more fancy. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the spiral lines here to give me an idea where I want my divisions. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out here and I'm going to round it out and then bring it in and then slope it down. And the same thing kind of on top. So I'm kind of like making an S again. And what that does is that leaves a space right in between. And I'm going to bring that around. And that just gives it a little extra niftiness. Kind of like a seashell. I think it looks neat that way. Let me fix that down here. There we go. And then you can like just color that inside, or you can make it a little bit more emphasized. Just depends on what you feel like doing. I like to make the little indentation between the spots. So it seems like it's a little bit more curly. There we go. Tassel that ear a little bit more. Kind of like a lynx's ear. We'll put a little bit of fluff in the inside of the ear. And that is how you draw a Gothic unicorn. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and found it helpful. Please leave me comments or suggestions for other tutorials that you would like to see, and I will try to get them done. Thanks so much, and I hope you guys will come back and see me again. Have a great night. Bye-bye.